I once thought the desert was the quietest place on Earth. No trees, no people, no sound except the dry wind scratching across the ground. But after that night, I realized silence doesn't always bring peace. Some silences exist only to hide something that's watching us. That June, I was assigned to a military research facility more than 100 kilometers from the nearest town, deep in the New Mexico desert. My job was simple: guard the auxiliary lab building, which stored equipment and samples transferred from the main center. I was alone on the night shift. No cell signal, no radio waves, only pale white neon lights and an old camera system that buzzed endlessly. On the first day, the lieutenant in charge warned me, if anything unusual happens, report it through the radio. But remember, don't go outside the fence unless ordered. I laughed. What could possibly be unusual in this desert? He looked at me, his smile fading. Not everyone thinks like you, kid. Out here, there are things better left unnamed. I didn't understand what he meant, but that night, when darkness swallowed the sands, I felt the suffocating emptiness of this place. My shift ran from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I sat in a small security room surrounded by 4 black and white monitors. Outside, there was only one road leading to the facility, a straight line cutting through the vast desert. No one came. No cars, no voices. Just the hum of electricity and the wind howling through the steel door gaps. Around midnight, the temperature dropped sharply. The air grew so cold I had to put on a thick military jacket. Sometimes I stepped out to breathe. Before me stretched a sea of dark sand, shimmering faintly under the silver moonlight, unnaturally still. In the distance, stone mountains loomed like giant shadows standing guard in the night. Beautiful, but soulless. Sometimes, I thought I heard something far away, like metal clashing or footsteps crunching on gravel. But when I stopped to listen, there was only the sound of my own heartbeat. Maybe it was just my mind. In a place this isolated, the brain invents sounds just to keep itself company. Around 1 a.m., I made a round around the building. Sand had already covered my boots and the steps in a thin layer. Nothing unusual. I shone my flashlight over the row of storage containers. Cold light reflected off gray steel. Everything was still quiet, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had just walked behind me. I turned around, only the wind stirring fine sand. I went back inside, trying to ignore that feeling. The cameras still showed normally, with light static. I poured coffee, sat down, eyes fixed on the monitors. On the southeast screen, something flashed for a split second. A shadow, then gone. I replayed the footage. Nothing, just a trick of the light. Yet the back of my neck went cold. The clock read 1:47 a.m. A sudden gust of wind hit. All the outdoor lights flickered, then went out. The whole facility sank into darkness, leaving only the dim glow inside my room. I grabbed the radio to report, but all I heard was static, like someone trying to speak through heavy interference. A distorted voice, half human, half howling. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Calm down, it's just a power outage, I muttered. But my heart was pounding faster than ever. The darkness outside seemed to move, as if the desert itself was breathing. I had a terrifying sense that I wasn't alone anymore. I switched the cameras to backup power. Only 3 out of 4 worked. The fourth one, the one facing the main door, was completely black. I tried to adjust it, but the signal didn't return. While I was fiddling with the controls, a dry sound came from behind the wall. Knock, knock, knock. 3 clear, steady knocks, as if someone was rapping from the other side. I froze. No one was allowed outside the fence, and I was the only one here. I gripped the flashlight tightly. A voice in my head said, "Don't go." But another, curious and afraid, urged me to find out who was there. I pressed my ear to the wall. Silence. No knocking, no footsteps, only a cold draft seeping through the door crack, carrying a faint metallic smell, like rust or dried blood. I stepped back, heart racing. The lights flickered once more, then stayed on. Everything looked normal again, as if nothing had happened. But I knew, from that moment on, this night would never be normal again. After that, I thought everything was over. But no, the night had only just begun. Around 2 in the morning, just as I sat back down at the desk, another knocking sound echoed. This time, it wasn't from the metal wall. It came from the main door. 3 slow, firm, heavy knocks, as if someone were standing outside using their fist. I looked at the camera screen. Still only 3 active feeds, the one facing the main door still pitch black. Sweat gathered on my wrists, even though the room was freezing cold. I tried speaking through the radio. "Central, this is Bravo Post. Is anyone at the south sector? Respond." No reply, only static and a faint, drawn-out sigh. I stood up, walking toward the door. The fluorescent light above flickered, like it was about to die. When I was just a few steps away, the sound came again. Knock, knock, knock. Then silence. I said quietly, "Who's there? Show me your ID." No answer. Only the wind whistling through the cracks, carrying the sound of sand scraping on the concrete floor. I turned on my flashlight, shining it through the small glass window on the door. No one there. Only the endless darkness of the desert, moonlight glinting faintly off distant dunes. But just as I turned away, something moved at the edge of the frame. I caught a glimpse of a long, thin shadow darting across the yard, too fast to be human. My heart pounded violently. I switched to the camera system, trying to restore the lost feed. And then, the image came back. For 3 brief seconds, I saw a figure standing a few meters beyond the fence. Tall, thin, arms hanging limply, head tilted to one side as if listening. Its eyes, if those were eyes, reflected a faint red glow, like infrared light on a camera. Then the screen went black again, static swallowing everything. I cursed under my breath, yanked the power cord, and the room fell silent once more. It took me nearly 5 minutes to breathe normally again. Outside was still only wind and sand, but something, I knew it, was still out there watching the building. I didn't dare go out anymore. I locked every door, pulled down the security blinds, and sat back in the chair. On the desk, my coffee had gone cold long ago. My hands were shaking so hard I almost spilled it. After a while, the radio crackled to life. A voice came through, hoarse and distant. "Bravo Post, do you copy? This is Lieutenant Harris. Report your status." I answered quickly, "There's someone around the building, sir, possibly an intruder." But the voice cut me off, mixed with a long exhale and slow, watery words. "Not human." I froze. "Say again, Lieutenant Harris. Confirm, not human. What do you mean?" No response, only the sound of wind howling, then the signal died completely. I tried calling several more times, but the radio was dead. Only me now, surrounded by a suffocating silence. Every sense in me was stretched to its limit. I could feel something moving outside, circling the building. No footsteps, just presence, as if the air itself was being pulled thin. Around 2:37 a.m., a long screech echoed from the west side, like metal claws dragging on steel doors. Then came footsteps, heavy, slow, deliberate, pacing around the walls. I looked at the monitors, but the feed was blurry. For a split second, through the static, I saw a pale face pressed against the lens, eyeless, blank. Then it vanished. I stumbled back, heart pounding. "No way," I muttered. "It must be a camera glitch." But before I could finish, the lights went out. The room plunged into darkness, no sound but my own heartbeat hammering in my chest. I grabbed the flashlight and swept it around. The dim yellow beam moved across the desk, the wall, and finally stopped at the small window to my left. Through the glass, I saw a shadow standing still. It didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there as if staring straight at me. I stepped back. The flashlight trembled in my hand. "Guard protocol, check the south perimeter," I muttered, trying to recall the procedure. But my legs wouldn't move. The shadow stayed there, even as the wind howled outside. Moonlight fell across it, revealing a pale, distorted face pressed against the glass, featureless, without eyes. I screamed, lunged toward the power switch. When the lights flicked back on, the window was empty. No one there. The air in the room felt thick, as if something had just passed through. I opened the recording system, but the drive had been wiped clean. Not a single frame remained, not even from a few minutes earlier. I collapsed into the chair, mind spinning. A part of me tried to reason it out. Maybe someone was testing the security system. Maybe it was electromagnetic interference. Maybe it was just sleep-deprived hallucination. But my heart knew the truth. No. Something else was out there, and it was learning to imitate humans. I gripped the gun at my side. The light in the room seemed to dim. Every sound, every rustle of wind, every faint creak felt like a whisper. I wondered, if someone were watching me through the cameras right now, would they see what I was seeing? Or had I become the only one still awake in a place where another world was breaking through? I looked up at the monitors. 4 cameras. One of them, the one facing the main door, flickered back on. No longer black, no longer static. It showed me, sitting in the room, staring at the screen. But behind me, in that same frame, there was another shadow, standing exactly one step away. I don't remember how long I sat still. Maybe a few seconds, maybe a few minutes, but I remember very clearly the breathing behind me. Slow, steady, warm, and so close I could feel the heat on my neck. I didn't dare turn around. My body was frozen, my heartbeat suffocatingly loud. Part of my mind screamed, "Turn around. If you don't, you'll never know what's standing behind you." But another part, the primal instinct buried deep inside, whispered, "Don't. You don't want to see it." The breathing lasted a few more seconds, then stopped. The room sank back into silence. I spun around, flashlight in hand. No one there. Just the empty chair, the concrete wall, and the dim reflection of light. But on the monitor in front of me, a shadow still stood behind my back, then slowly faded away. I grabbed the radio, voice trembling. "Central, this is Bravo. Something's inside the building. I repeat, there's something." A voice interrupted me. Not Lieutenant Harris's. Not anyone else's. My own. "Calm down, Bravo. You're just imagining things." The sound echoed through the radio, matching every tone, every breath, except it didn't breathe. I froze. That voice repeated, slow and cold, "Go outside. We need to check the perimeter. It's fine." Then silence. I looked around. No one for miles, no teammates, no headlights, no signal, only the desert's darkness. I tried to convince myself the radio was hacked, but then the sound came again, not from the radio, but from beyond the steel door. "Go outside. Bravo." The voice, my voice, just half a tone lower, distorted as if spoken underwater. I stood still, hand gripping the gun tightly. The call came again, closer now, soft as a breath beside my ear. "I know. You can still hear me." The lights flickered. Each time they flashed, I saw a tall figure behind the glass door, half a head taller than me, tilting its head to one side. It didn't knock. It didn't move. It just mirrored my breathing, perfectly. I backed toward the wall, flashlight aimed at the door. The sand outside still shifted in the wind, but the shadow didn't move. My hands shook as I flipped the safety off. "If you're still there, I'll shoot." No response. Only faint, broken laughter echoing from every direction. Not like a human sound, but like a recording played in reverse. Then suddenly, the radio crackled alive again. A different voice shouted, urgent, "Bravo, hold your position. Don't go outside. We're on our way." I yelled back, "Lieutenant Harris? Is that you? There's something." But as I spoke, the steel door made a soft click. The lock released itself. I turned sharply. No one had touched it. No power, no remote system. The door weighed dozens of kilos, yet it was slowly opening, inch by inch, screeching metal against metal. I raised my gun, aiming at the darkness beyond. The air that blew in was colder than before. A strange smell followed, damp earth mixed with metallic tang. And then I heard my voice. "It's okay, I'm here now." My voice, but not from my mouth. It came from the darkness behind the door, along with a pale, long, thin hand slowly gripping the steel frame. I fired. The gunshot echoed deafeningly, reverberating through the room. The door slammed shut. Smoke cleared. I panted, drenched in cold sweat. On the steel surface, no bullet marks, no blood. Only a long, stretched handprint etched deep into the metal, as if corroded into it. I staggered back, still clutching the gun. The voice returned, this time inside my head, threading directly into my nerves. "Why are you afraid of yourself?" The gun slipped from my hand. I collapsed. My ears rang, vision blurring. Everything around me, walls, lights, desks, seemed to melt, warping and stretching like soft wax. I saw someone step into the room. No, not someone, something. It looked like me, every hair, every scar on my wrist, but with eyes hollow and black as pits. It smiled, then spoke with my exact voice. "Now I understand how you exist." I stumbled backward into the corner. The thing moved slowly toward me. The flashlight beam glinted off its face, and for a split second I realized it had no skin. Its body was raw muscle, slick and twitching, shifting like a replica still being formed. I screamed, grabbed a chair, and hurled it. The chair passed right through it, like through smoke. It tilted its head, still smiling, then dissolved into thousands of black wisps that seeped into the cracks of the walls. I collapsed onto the floor. Silence returned. Only my erratic heartbeat remained. Maybe I'd gone insane. Maybe it was all a hallucination from sleep deprivation or magnetic waves. But when I looked at the security monitor, a recording had started playing on its own. The screen showed me, sitting in the chair, exactly as I was now, but behind me stood a shadow. It didn't move, just rested its hand on my shoulder. I turned off the monitor, threw the radio to the ground. I didn't want to know anymore, didn't want to hear, didn't want to see. But even with my ears covered, the voice still came, soft, patient, unrelenting. "Bravo, open the door. I'm cold." I clenched my head, trying to shut it out. But the voice grew closer, spreading through every corner of the room, through the walls, through my chest. "If you won't open it, I'll do it for you." I looked up. The main door lock began blinking red. Warning text flashed across the control panel. "Emergency unlock. Authorized user Bravo 17. I hadn't touched anything. Yet the facial recognition system had activated, and on the display screen was my face. I don't remember exactly what made me stand up at that moment. Maybe it was because the voice kept echoing in my head. Not loud, not urgent, but soft, like an invitation. Or maybe because I was too afraid to keep sitting inside those 4 sealed walls. Whatever it was, I opened the door and stepped outside. The desert wind hit my face hard, cold enough to sting. The sky was pitch black, with only a thin crescent moon hanging like a blade. The air was heavy, dry, and eerily still. No engine sounds, no insects, only the wind and my own breathing. I swept the flashlight around, thin bands of light cut across the endless sand. Every time the beam touched a shadow, I thought I saw something, a shape, a movement, or maybe just the illusion of fear. I whispered to myself, trying to stay calm. It's okay, just one quick round and back. But deep down, I knew I didn't want to go back. Whatever was inside, it had already come in with me. Out here, at least there was the sky. I walked along the metal fence where the camera had lost signal. The sand was still warm, which meant that thing, if it existed, had been here not long ago. On the ground, I found a trail of footprints, but the shape was strange. Not boot prints, not animal claws. Each mark was deep, long, with 5 jointed bends like human fingers, and the distance between them, far too long for any normal stride. I stepped back slightly, my heart racing. The metallic stench in the air grew stronger, and something hissed faintly from afar, like wind through a hollow pipe. I turned on the radio, trying again. "Command, this is Bravo. I'm at the south sector, found some strange traces, requesting instructions." Silence. Then a voice crackled through, hoarse, layered with static. "Do not go further, Bravo. Turn back now." I froze. That wasn't Harris's voice, and it wasn't mine either. It sounded like a collage of several voices, half human, half machine, each syllable grinding through metal. "We're watching you." The radio went dead. I swallowed hard and forced myself to move on. Ahead, the main laboratory building appeared, a silent gray block of concrete, the main door locked by a biometric code, but the scanner light was still on. No one should have been there at this hour. I approached, flashlight glinting off the keypad. The reflection revealed a streak of dried blood on the handle. The moment I touched the panel, it beeped softly and displayed, "Access granted, code Bravo 17. A chill ran down my spine. I hadn't entered any code. The door opened silently. I shone the light inside. The lab was pitch dark, the smell of disinfectant mixed with burnt flesh. On the tables, shattered glassware and broken instruments, shards glimmered like small eyes watching me. I took a few steps forward and stopped. In the middle of the floor, something was moving, not a person, a black, slick mass twitching, as if trying to reshape itself. When the flashlight hit it, I saw clearly. It was a human body, but the lower half had melted like wax, and the face was mine. I stumbled back, tripping over something solid. It was an ID badge, Lieutenant Harris, Level A clearance. Below it, a smear of dark blood and dragged fingerprints. The black mass started to make a sound, first a faint moan, then gradually forming words in my voice, broken, distorted, but clear. "Don't be afraid." I shook uncontrollably, then instinctively fired 3 rounds. The mass burst into thick black vapor, reeking of burnt flesh. But instead of dissipating, it spread across the floor, seeping into cracks, crawling up the walls, and from every patch of darkness, faces began to emerge, opening their eyes to stare at me. I ran. No more reason, no more duty, only survival. I sprinted out of the lab, hearing footsteps matching mine on the other side of the fence. Whenever I stopped, they stopped. Whenever I gasped, they gasped too. When I finally turned the flashlight toward the fence, I saw a man in the same uniform as mine, standing perfectly still, smiling. That smile, I knew, it wasn't human. The corners of its mouth stretched to the ears, and its eyes reflected light like mirrors. No whites, no pupils. I backed away, hands shaking so hard I dropped the flashlight. In the dark, the voice came again, soft, deep, right beside my ear. I told you, we're more alike than you think. A cold hand touched my shoulder. I spun around, only to see the air twisting. Then everything around me warped. Sound vanished. The entire desert seemed to collapse into a single point. I woke up in the guard room. The lights were still on. The camera feeds looked normal. No sign of intrusion. I looked around. Everything was the same. The cold coffee cup still there. The radio on the table. But my uniform was covered in sand and dust. I quickly checked the monitor logs. The time read 3:11 a.m. Every recording between 2:02 and 3:10 erased. I clutched my head, trying to recall what I'd done. Only fragments remained. The door, the voice, the flickering light, and a face just like mine, smiling in the dark. The radio crackled again. This time, Harris's voice came through clearly. "Bravo, report your position. Are you all right?" I jumped up, trembling, grabbing the radio. "Yes, still at post. I think there's been an incident." That's impossible," Harris interrupted. "Bravo 17 was sent back to base yesterday morning." I froze. The radio slipped from my hand, hitting the floor with a dull thud. On the monitor in front of me, my own image appeared, sitting still, staring straight into the lens. But in the corner of the screen, another figure stood close behind me, smiling, and slowly placing a hand on my shoulder. He walked quickly toward the control room, his palm still gripping the flashlight, like the only thread keeping him tethered to reality. Each step on the concrete floor echoed sharply, bouncing down the long, empty corridor, as if he were walking inside the belly of some massive sleeping beast. From afar, he saw the main door to the security room. It was wide open. That was impossible. Regulations were clear. The door must always remain closed, the fingerprint lock allowing access to only 3 people in the entire facility. 1 was Captain Harris, 2 was him, and 3 was the morning shift technician. No one else. He slowed down, heart pounding faster. The desert wind slipped through the crack of the door, carrying sand and dampness, snuffing out the faint flicker of the fluorescent light inside. As he drew closer, a sharp smell hit him straight in the nose, metallic, cold, and pungent. There was no mistaking it. It was the smell of blood. He stopped at the doorway. In the weak light, everything in the room seemed to be in its place. The control desk, the monitors, the signal antenna. But something was wrong. The main screen, which should have been showing 12 camera feeds around the perimeter, now displayed only white static, like falling snow. And on the floor, a long drag mark led from the window to the central console, as if someone had been pulled across the concrete, leaving behind a dark, faint trail. He stepped inside. The flashlight beam swept across the corners, catching the pale red stains, then stopped on the swivel chair. It was slowly turning, creaking softly, as if someone had just gotten up seconds ago. He swallowed hard, moved closer. On the console, a coffee cup still gave off a thin wisp of steam. The heat hadn't completely faded. He checked his watch. 2:17 a.m. He remembered clearly, when he'd left the room, the clock had shown the same time, which meant everything had stopped. He opened the recording system, trying to restore the camera data, but all the videos froze on one exact frame, him walking out the door. Right after that, the footage cut. The screen turned black. Then a dark shape flickered across, blurred, unusually tall, twice the height of a normal person. No sound, no further movement. He replayed it over and over, and each time the image grew more distorted, as if the video itself resisted being seen. When he slowed it to the lowest speed, he saw the most horrifying detail of all. That dark shape had his face. Twisted, stretched, and smiling. A grin that reached to the ears. His heart hammered violently. He hit the emergency light switch, flooding the entire building with a cold, white glow. But then, through the intercom speakers, came a sound, breathing. Clear, close, almost right next to his ear. "You shouldn't have come back." The voice was hoarse, warped, and worst of all, it was his own. He spun around, flashlight slicing through the air, his pulse thundering. No one there. No one at all. He rushed to the console, shutting off all the audio systems, but the breathing didn't stop. Now it came from everywhere. The ceiling speakers, the vents, even the wall behind him. He backed away, trembling, muttering under his breath. "Calm down. Just a signal glitch. Just." But then he noticed the back door of the control room slowly closing, noiselessly, even though there was no wind. He lunged forward, tried to wedge it open with his foot, but the door felt heavy, as if someone was pushing from the other side. A powerful force shoved back, throwing him onto the floor. The flashlight rolled away, spinning once before going out. The room plunged into total darkness. Only the quiet, steady breathing remained. Close. Very close. He reached out blindly for the flashlight, but at that moment, an icy hand grabbed his ankle. He recoiled violently, kicking hard, crawling backward toward the console. From the darkness came a dry, rasping laugh, long and sharp, like nails scraping on steel. Then that same voice spoke again. "I told you not to come back." He leapt up, slamming the main power switch. The lights burst on. The room was empty, completely empty. Nothing, no one. Only a smear of a bloody handprint dragged across the floor all the way to his chair. He froze. Above the console, the monitor flickered to life, and there he saw himself, standing in the middle of the room, staring straight into the camera. But he hadn't turned around. A cold shiver ran down his spine. He understood now. Something was using his shape, and it had been inside the facility all along. After that night, the entire security system suffered permanent data corruption. The official report stated technical malfunction caused by electromagnetic interference. But no one could ever explain why the interference signal originated from inside the control room. Since that night, he requested a transfer back to the city. No one asked why. No one mentioned it again. His superior merely wrote briefly in the record, "Unable to adapt to remote duty." He silently signed, packed his things, and left. The military truck drove through the night, leaving behind the vast desert where the sky and the ground seemed to merge into one. He never looked back. At first, life in the city felt like freedom. The cars, the lights, the noise. Everything was so loud that he couldn't hear his fear anymore. He rented a small apartment on the 7th floor, just big enough for a bed, a desk, and a small cabinet. That first night, he slept deeply, as if he hadn't slept in years. But only a week later, it began again. Quietly, slowly, like a beast crawling back from the depths of his memory. It started with sounds. A faint knocking somewhere in the middle of the night. 3 knocks. Sharp, deliberate, then silence. He thought it was a neighbor, or maybe the pipes. But when he pressed his ear to the wall, the sound wasn't coming from outside. It came from within. 3 knocks, same rhythm, same spot, always at exactly 2:17 a.m. The moment he noticed the time, a chill ran down his spine. That was the exact moment the cameras had stopped recording that night. On the 3rd night, he didn't sleep. He turned off the lights, sat in the dark, and waited. And just as he expected, the knocks came. 3. Then, after a few seconds of silence, he heard a whisper. Very faint, like wind sliding through a crack. "Open the door." He stood up, heart pounding so violently it hurt, but the room was silent, only the ticking of the clock and his own breathing. The next day, he went to work like a ghost. People asked if he was okay. He forced a smile. That night, he left the lights on, played music, but the knocking persisted, soft, persistent, like something reminding him he couldn't escape. By the 2nd week, the dreams returned. He saw himself back at the old base, standing once again in the desert. The wind howled, dry and sharp. In the distance, the control room flickered like a dying heartbeat. He walked toward it, and as his hand touched the door, a voice spoke behind him. "You left me here." He turned and saw a man identical to himself, face stretched, eyes black as voids. "I'm still here." The dream ended with his scream, and he woke drenched in sweat. The clock read 2:17 a.m. After that, he stopped sleeping. He drowned himself in coffee, trying to stay awake, but the body has limits. When exhaustion claimed him, he'd collapse. And every time he did, he saw himself standing outside the window, smiling. No sound, just lips moving. Every time he tried to focus, the dream shattered, and he'd wake gasping, chest tight with terror. Time began to blur. Some days, he couldn't remember what he'd done or where he'd gone. Neighbors said they heard him talking in his apartment late at night, talking to himself. Once, an old woman downstairs knocked to ask him to turn off his light because it kept flickering all night. But he hadn't turned it on. The breaking point came on the 21st night. He was sitting in front of the mirror, forcing himself to believe it was all in his head. He stared at his reflection, whispering, "There's nothing. You're still you." But then, his reflection stopped moving. He blinked, turned his head. The reflection didn't. A dark streak of blood began to trickle from its mouth, dripping onto the table. He jumped up, the mirror shattered, but someone's faint laughter echoed inside his mind, blending with that metallic knocking. 3 beats, steady, like the heartbeat of something no longer human. From that night on, every electrical device in the apartment began to fail. Lights flickered. The TV turned on and off even when unplugged. Every time he passed the hallway mirror, his reflection moved just a fraction too late, as if it was beginning to live its own life. He went to the military hospital. The doctor said post-traumatic stress disorder. Prescribed sedatives, told him to rest. He laughed bitterly. How could he rest when sleep itself was a prison? One evening, exhausted beyond endurance, he fell asleep at his desk. When he woke, it was still dark, but the apartment wasn't silent anymore. The window was wide open, curtains flapping, and in the center of the room, someone stood. He tried to speak, but his throat locked. The figure turned around, the same face, every feature identical, except for the smile. The smile stretched from ear to ear. It stepped closer, slow, soundless. Streetlight poured in through the window, catching its eyes, hollow, bottomless, black. He backed against the wall. Its hand gripped his shoulder, cold, metallic. Then it leaned close, whispering in his own voice, "I told you, you shouldn't have come back." When he came to, the room was empty. The window shut, but on his shoulder, the gray handprint remained, long-fingered, cold as steel. He cried, not knowing whether from fear or because he finally understood. The thing had never left. It had only moved, from the desert to the city, from outside to within him. That night, for the first time since leaving the base, he opened his window and looked out. The street below was empty, silent, the wind sighing through. But in the far corner, beneath the dim light, a figure stood still, staring up. He recognized it instantly. The posture, the shoulders, the face. It was him. He smiled faintly, warily, and slowly closed the window. Somewhere in the room, 3 knocks sounded. Soft, steady. Exactly 2:17 a.m. 3 months after the incident, the base in the New Mexico desert was permanently shut down. No press release, no official explanation. The only line in the internal report read, "Unidentified biological event, maximum containment level." All personnel involved were reassigned or quietly retired, their personal files erased from the system. His name disappeared too, as if he had never existed in the military at all. As for him, he still lived in the small 7th-floor apartment, trying to let life pass quietly. He no longer worked, never went out. Day after day, he sat by the window, watching the city below. The neon light washed over his face, making his skin look pale, corpse-like. Sometimes he saw a figure standing under the streetlight that had long since gone dark. It never moved, only stood there, staring up. Whether day or night, whether he closed the curtains or not, he knew it was still there. One night, when the entire block lost power, he sat in the darkness, the faint moonlight sliding across the wall. Then came the knocking, 3 times. But this time, it wasn't coming from the wall. It came from behind him. He didn't turn around. He only closed his eyes, breathed slowly, and whispered, "I know you're there." A soft laugh followed, low, distorted, and ragged, like it came from a rusted throat. It wasn't anyone else's laugh. It was his own. Then silence, complete silence. He stood and walked toward the bathroom mirror, the one he had replaced after the last one shattered. He looked deep into it, and for the first time in months, the reflection wasn't delayed. The face was normal, tired, but real. He smiled faintly. Maybe, finally, he was free. But as he turned to leave, the reflection didn't move. It stayed still, eyes following him, lips curving upward into a long, spreading grin, and spoke, "I told you, don't come back." He froze, barely breathing. The mirror began to tremble, its surface vibrating, and from within, tiny cracks spread like spiderwebs across thin ice. A black hand slid out, nails long, dragging down the edge of the glass, leaving a cold smear of blood. He backed toward the door, heart pounding, unable to look away. The figure in the mirror stepped halfway out, face warped, eyes dark as voids. And in the dim light, he saw that it was himself, except for one thing, the smile. The room's lights flickered back on, everything was gone. He stood alone in the cold, breath uneven. The mirror looked normal again, no cracks, no blood. But deep down, he knew. It hadn't vanished. It had simply gone back to where it always was, inside him. The next morning, neighbors called the police, saying they hadn't seen him in days. Officers broke down the door. The apartment was untouched, everything in place, except for the bathroom mirror, split clean in half, one side lying on the floor, catching a faint reflection of the window light. No signs of struggle, no blood, no trace of anyone leaving. Only 3 distinct knocks on the wall beside the bed. The report concluded, subject not found. The room was sealed off. Tenants who came after never stayed long. Some claimed they heard someone talking around 2:17 a.m., a low, distorted voice that sounded eerily familiar. And in the bathroom mirror, they sometimes saw a soldier standing behind them, motionless, staring. Over time, the story faded into rumor. The desert base was buried by sand, only a few rusted metal walls jutting up like the bones of a dead creature. Locals said that on moonless nights, you could still hear metallic knocking in the wind, 3 times, repeating endlessly. No one knew what really happened. But one thing was certain, none of them dared to stop their cars when passing that place. Because sometimes, in the rearview mirror, they'd see a man in uniform sitting in the back seat, half his face lost to shadow, smiling. Every story is just another whisper in the dark. If you've experienced something truly terrifying, send it to Dark Whispers Audio. Let your story be told in the night. Subscribe now, for the darkness still holds many secrets.